When a killer smiles at their arrest, it's not confidence, it's a message. And Marcus Hale's message was clear. He wasn't alone. Someone else wanted Richard Adler dead. Someone with more to lose, more to gain, more access. Tonight, we meet that person, and nothing about them is what Emily or investigators expected. As Marcus was driven away from the estate, he leaned toward the glass divider separating him from the officers. He whispered, barely audible, "It wasn't my idea." The officer in front scoffed. Marcus added, "And they're still inside the estate." That sentence made both officers stiffen. Still inside? Still hiding? Still planning? The car sped toward the precinct. But Marcus's final words hung in the air like smoke. "You're next, Emily." Back in the mansion, Emily locked herself in the guest suite. But the estate felt different tonight. Colder, heavier, darker. Every creak made her jump. Every shadow felt alive. She tried to calm herself, but her mind kept replaying Marcus's smile. "He thinks someone else is involved." She whispered it again, under her breath, piecing the timeline together. Her father's last argument with Marcus. The missing documents. The security override codes. The estate financial reports. Something was wrong. Something she had missed. And then her phone buzzed. An email from her father's private account. Sent the night he died. Never opened. The subject line read, "If Marcus fails." Emily's heart. Emily opened the message. Inside was a single sentence, "Trust no one with a key." Attached was a file labeled Access Log 4B that the file didn't open. It was encrypted, strongly. Emily's father was paranoid, but brilliant. But there was one person who could open the file, Isaac Dorn, the estate's technology consultant, paid obscenely well, always quiet, always invisible. Emily emailed him instantly. He replied within minutes. "Bring it to my workshop. Come alone." That reply was suspiciously fast. Emily hesitated, but she needed answers. Isaac Dorn's workshop was located in a sealed, climate-controlled room beneath the estate. A place Emily rarely visited, Richard trusted, and staff avoided. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Isaac looked up from his workstation, his glasses reflecting pale blue monitor light. His voice was soft, polite, emotionless. "You said you have a file?" Emily handed her laptop to him. He inserted a drive, typed rapidly. The screen filled with lines of code. Isaac muttered, "Your father wrote this encryption like a trap. If you enter the wrong key, it wipes itself." Emily whispered, "Can you crack it?" Isaac stared at her. A long, unsettling stare. Then he said, "Yes." Isaac finished the decryption in under 2 minutes. Far too fast. The file opened. It contained security badge logs, maintenance hatch entries, motion sensor overrides, and access timestamps. The night of the murder had 4 entries. Marcus Hale's was one. But Emily's breath caught when she saw the second name. Dorn Isaac. Access confirmed. 1:45 a.m. Isaac. Her father's tech consultant, the man sitting 3 feet away. Emily tried to stay calm. She forced her voice steady. "You were here that night?" Isaac didn't blink. "I never left." Emily's throat tightened. Isaac closed the laptop slowly, then locked eyes with her. "Marcus wasn't the mastermind, Emily. He was just the arm." Emily whispered, "And you were... what?" Isaac smiled faintly. "The architect." Isaac stood, wiping his hands on a cloth, the way someone does before delivering bad news. "You want to know why your father had to die?" he asked. Emily stepped back. Isaac continued, "He was going to fire me, cut my division, erase the work I built for 10 years. Emily blinked. "That's your reason?" Isaac shook his head. "That was the surface. The real reason was money." He clicked a remote. A wall monitor lit up with spreadsheets, tens of millions in transactions, all labeled Estate Data Security Division, Private Allocation. Emily gasped, "You were stealing from my father?" Isaac corrected her. No, I was protecting what he stole. Emily froze. What are you talking about? Isaac leaned in. Your father hid assets, Emily. Offshore trusts, digital wallets, shadow accounts, over $100 million. Emily shook her head. Isaac continued. He was going to expose it, dissolve everything, restart the estate under new oversight. Isaac's voice darkened. If he did that, I would lose everything. Emily stepped backward toward the exit. Isaac didn't move. He simply said, Marcus handled the physical part. I handled the systems. And now, it's time I handle you. Emily bolted for the door. Isaac tapped his watch. The door locked. She turned back, breathing hard. Isaac stepped closer, calm, controlled, like a surgeon preparing for an incision. Emily, don't make this messy. Emily scanned the room, searching for anything she could use. A glass beaker, a soldering iron, a metal chair. Isaac whispered, You were never meant to find the file. If Marcus had succeeded, you would have inherited blindly. Everything would have continued quietly. Emily grabbed the nearest object, a metal wrench, and swung. Isaac dodged easily, but the swing hit the emergency cabinet behind him, shattering the glass. A fire alarm blared, sprinklers engaged. The room filled with cold mist. The electronic locks froze due to system overload. Emily ran. Isaac lunged. She scraped through the half-open door. His fingers grazed her wrist, and she slammed the door in his face. Isaac pounded on it, softly at first, then harder. Then, silence. Emily backed away, panting, collapsing to the floor. She whispered, He's the real killer. By the time security arrived, Isaac Dorn was gone. Not in the workshop, not in the estate, not on the grounds. He disappeared through the same maintenance corridor he once used to help Marcus, leaving behind only the decrypted file, the money trail, and the proof that Richard Adler's murder was a two-man conspiracy. Except one of them was still out there, and Isaac Dorn had a plan. He always had a plan. When Isaac Dorn vanished from the estate, he didn't run blindly. He knew the cameras, the blind spots, the tunnels, the code overrides. He didn't escape the estate. He disappeared into it. Because what Emily didn't know, what her father never told her, was that Miraval Crown Estate had a fourth level, a secret level, a level only two people knew existed: Richard Adler and Isaac Dorn. Tonight, that hidden world finally reveals itself. Officers swept every floor: ground level, service wing, garden tunnels, wine cellar, storage chambers, staff rooms. Nothing. Emily tried to steady her voice. He did get out. He must have. But the chief investigator shook his head. No external exit sensors triggered. No gate movement, no perimeter breach. He didn't leave. Emily whispered, Then he's still inside. The detective nodded. And that sentence chilled everyone in the room. Deep below the estate, Isaac Dorn slipped silently through a tight maintenance shaft. He crawled slowly, methodically. Above him, guards were running room to room. He smiled. They were searching horizontally. He was moving vertically. The shaft led to an old chamber Richard sealed off nearly a decade earlier. Sublevel D. Blueprints showed nothing. No maps, no labels, nothing. Isaac had built the concealment protocols himself. He pushed open a rusted panel. A cold, stale room waited on the other side. He inhaled deeply. Home. While searching her father's study for clues about Isaac's hiding place, Emily found a thick binder labeled Miraval, Archive, restricted inside. Hundreds of estate sketches, but one page stood out. Not because it was detailed, but because it was mostly blank. A massive rectangle beneath the foundation. No rooms, no notes, just a large shaded block. Sublevel D, Private Construction, 2014. Emily's hands trembled. Her father built something beneath the estate and never told her. She turned the page. There, written faintly in the corner, "Only Isaac understands the access system." Emily whispered, "Oh my God." He didn't just work for Dad. He built Dad's secrets. Emily replayed the cryptic audio message Richard had recorded before he died. "If anything happens to me, trust no one with a key." On her 10th listen, she noticed something strange, a faint beep under Richard's voice. Not random, rhythmic, a sequence. Emily transcribed it, 414703. She typed it into the Blueprint archive system. A hidden overlay unlocked. Her breath caught. Behind the blank block on the blueprint appeared a doorway, a freight shaft, 4 small rooms, and a central chamber labeled Vault Level D. Emily whispered, "Isaac's down there." Isaac reached the vault, entered a code. The thick steel door slid open. Inside the vault were 7 filing cabinets, a biometric safe, 2 servers humming quietly, and a single dust-covered desk. On it, a leather folio labeled Legacy. Isaac walked directly to the biometric safe. His fingerprints unlocked it instantly. Inside were stacks of documents, encrypted drives, account statements, offshore keys, crypto access tokens, and a folder labeled Isaac to be opened only in event of termination. Isaac opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a note from Richard, handwritten, direct. Cruel. Isaac read the letter aloud, voice trembling. "Isaac, your work has become dangerous. Your loyalty has become uncertain. Your demands have become unacceptable. I am terminating your access, your division, and your future role. You have taken money. You have manipulated systems. You believe you are indispensable. You are not. When this letter reaches you, I will have already contacted authorities. You will lose everything. Richard Adler." Isaac's breathing escalated. His hands shook violently. He whispered, "He was going to destroy me, erase me, dispose of me." Then his voice hardened. "So I erased him first." He ripped the letter into pieces. In the vault, Isaac stared at the offshore accounts. Each document referenced the same shell company, Corvantis Holdings registered offshore. Untraceable owners. Linked directly to Richard's personal accounts. Isaac muttered, "He was moving everything. All 100 million and without me." For years, Isaac had helped Richard hide money. But Richard was planning to consolidate everything, remove Isaac, create a new trust, and rewrite the estate's legal structure. Isaac wasn't just afraid of losing his job. He was about to lose his wealth, his leverage, his freedom. Motive confirmed. Guided by the decrypted blueprint, Emily reached the freight shaft. Dust, cold air, silence. She climbed down the ladder, step by trembling step. Her flashlight scanned the narrow hallway, old pipes, concrete walls, cobwebs. She followed the path toward the vault. She whispered to herself, "Dad, what were you hiding down here?" At the end of the hall, she found it. A massive steel door with 2 palm scanners, one labeled R. Adler, the other I. Dorn. Her chest tightened. She placed her palm on her father's scanner. The reader flashed red incorrect. She tried again, red. Then she noticed a small inscription near the base. Authorized family override, 414703, the sequence from the audio file. She input the digits. The vault door released with a deep metallic groan. Inside the vault, papers scattered, screens flickering. A chair knocked over. Isaac had just been here, but he was gone. And then she saw it, a second exit, a narrow passage recently disturbed. She followed it, heart pounding, until she heard movement, shuffling, a figure. She raised her flashlight, and the beam illuminated, not Isaac, not a guard, a woman, disheveled, eyes sunken, hands trembling. She stepped forward and whispered, "Emily, your father didn't tell you everything." Emily froze. "Who are you?" The woman swallowed hard. "My name is Claire Dorn." Emily stiffened. "Dorn? As in—" "Yes, Isaac's wife." Emily took a step back. Claire continued, "You think Isaac acted alone, but he didn't." Emily whispered, "There's a third conspirator?" Claire nodded slowly. "He didn't kill your father for himself. He killed him for someone far worse." Emily trembled. "Who?" Claire's answer was barely audible. "Your father's business partner." The morning after the sheriff's office seized the safe from the hidden cellar, the Morrison estate carried an eerie stillness, like the house itself knew a storm was about to break. Detectives, forensic teams, and federal investigators moved through the property methodically, dusting, measuring, photographing, documenting every surface that might whisper a truth. The luxury mansion that once symbolized power now felt like a mausoleum, not because Richard Morrison had died inside it, but because this house had held his secrets hostage. And now, those secrets were finally being freed. When the safe was loaded onto the evidence truck, every detective knew this was the key. The hidden cellar, the reinforced chamber, the biometric lock. This was no ordinary storage. Richard Morrison had built this bunker for one purpose: to protect the truth when everyone else was lying. Inside the sheriff's office evidence room, the safe sat on a steel table like a dormant beast. Its edges were scorched, melted in places. Someone had tried to burn it recently. Agent Carver stood with his arms crossed, staring at the warped metal. "Someone knew we were getting close," he muttered. "They tried to destroy what was inside before we could reach it." Sheriff Dalton nodded grimly. "But they didn't open it, and they didn't get away with whatever they started." The safe was built with fire-resistant composite steel. Even a full attempt at arson wouldn't have cracked it open. But the melted corners told the team everything they needed to know. The killer came back. And they almost succeeded in erasing the final evidence. The room had been cleared except for 6 individuals: Agent Carver, federal investigator, Sheriff Dalton, 2 forensic analysts, a digital archivist, a photographer documenting every step. The air was so tense you could almost feel the hum of anticipation vibrating through the walls. The analyst powered up a portable laser cutter. Sparks danced across the metal as the blade carved through layers that weren't supposed to ever be touched again, unless disaster struck. 20 minutes later, the final latch fell. The door loosened, and for a heartbeat, no one moved. Sheriff Dalton finally stepped forward. He placed gloved hands on the cold metal and pulled. The door opened with a deep mechanical groan, and then silence. Absolute silence. Because what they saw inside the safe was not money, not jewelry, not documents. What they found was fear preserved. The safe held 3 items, each wrapped in a cloth, each labeled meticulously in Richard's handwriting. Item number 1, a leather-bound journal, black, heavy, edges worn. A small tag, private log, read only in emergency. Item number 2, a USB drive, sealed in a thermal case, labeled video evidence. Item number 3, a manila folder, stamped with a red marking. If they kill me, this is why. Carver froze. Dalton exhaled sharply. The room changed. Everyone felt it. Richard Morrison hadn't been paranoid. He hadn't been anxious. He hadn't been overreacting. He was documenting a threat he knew would kill him. And he was preparing for the day when he wouldn't be around to explain it. Dalton opened the journal carefully. Every page was filled with Richard's handwriting, thousands of words. The first entry: "If someone is reading this, I'm either missing or dead." Carver clenched his jaw. They flipped through the early pages, Richard describing his suspicion that someone close to him was manipulating his finances. It began small: forged authorizations, suspicious transfers, missing signatures, contracts he never approved. But then the journal shifted. He suspected someone was intercepting his mail. He suspected someone mirrored his digital accounts. He suspected someone was forging his legal identity. And then, one chilling passage. I think someone wants my estate. I don't think it's just for money. I think they want to erase me and take my life, on paper and in reality. Dalton whispered, "This isn't a diary. It's evidence." Carver corrected him. "No, it's a witness statement." Richard had been recording everything. Discrepancies in the estate trust, conversations with lawyers who had documents he never signed, strange behavior from family members, staff who quit abruptly, threatening anonymous emails, a suspicious fire that almost reached his home office, a break-in where nothing was stolen except documents, and lastly, "If anything happens to me, start with the trust revisions. I didn't sign them, and someone forged my signature months before I died." Carver tapped the page with a gloved finger. He knew. He knew exactly what they were doing. Dalton muttered under his breath. They didn't just want his estate. They wanted to rewrite history so no one would question it. The digital archivist connected the USB to a forensic laptop designed to prevent tampering. A single file popped up. "Do not ignore DEMP4. The archivist clicked play. The screen lit up. The room went quiet. The footage was time-stamped 2 weeks before Richard's death. The camera angle suggested it was recorded from a hidden device in Richard's study. And then Richard appeared on screen, looking exhausted, eyes hollow, voice trembling but determined. He leaned forward, staring into the lens. "Richard, on video. If you're watching this, they finally made their move. You need to understand something. I didn't change my will. I didn't sign the trust modifications. I didn't approve any of the transfers." He swallowed hard. His eyes shifted as if he heard something outside the frame. Then he leaned in again. "They've been planning this for years." Carver's heart rate spiked. Dalton clenched both fists. Richard continued. "Someone inside this estate, someone I trust, is working with them. They're watching me, they're listening, and they're close." The camera shook slightly, Richard adjusting something. Then he said the words that made everyone in the room stop breathing. "If they kill me, check the fire. That wasn't an accident." Dalton gasped. Carver whispered, "The kitchen fire, months before his death." The video continued. Richard's voice was barely a whisper now. "I know who is involved, and I wrote all of their names in the folder." He reached off screen, grabbed a manila envelope, the same one now sitting on the evidence table. "If they erase me, this is the only thing that will protect the truth." The video ended. The room felt colder. Dalton placed his hand on the folder. He hesitated. Everyone did. This folder was the final revelation. The archivist documented the moment. Carver breathed deeply. Dalton opened it. Inside were 4 names, written in bold black ink. 4 people Richard Morrison believed were involved in his murder. Carver read them out loud. When he reached the second name, Dalton stepped back in shock. His face went pale. The name belonged to someone no one would have suspected. Someone who benefited the most. Someone who had acted devastated. Someone who had cooperated with investigators. Someone who was still alive. And someone who still had access to the estate. Carver whispered, "This changes everything." Dalton nodded slowly. "We need to get to them, before they realize we found this." But as they turned to leave the evidence room, the lights flickered. A loud bang echoed from the far end of the building. Carver froze. Dalton reached for his gun. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And suddenly, the investigation wasn't safe anymore, because whoever killed Richard Morrison was closer than anyone realized. The echo of the bang rolled through the sheriff's office like a shockwave. Every investigator in the evidence wing froze. Dalton's hand hovered at his holster. Carver didn't blink. The archivist whispered, voice shaking, That, that sounded like a door slamming. But Carver knew better. That wasn't a door. That was force. Intentional force. A warning or a breach. Carver raised 2 fingers silently, signaling everyone to stay low. He moved toward the door of the evidence room, pressed his ear against it, and listened. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, too soft to be a civilian, too controlled to be a panicked visitor. Someone trained, someone who knew exactly where they were going. Dalton mouthed, "Security?" Carver shook his head with absolute certainty. "No, that's not security." Another step, closer this time. And something else, a faint metallic sound, like a weapon being readied. Carver's eyes sharpened. Whoever had broken in was armed. The lights flickered again. This time they didn't come back to full brightness. They dimmed, humming faintly as the building shuddered. Dalton inhaled sharply. "Power fluctuation. Someone might have cut the auxiliary feed." Carver nodded. "They're trying to force us out of the evidence room." But no one moved, because they all knew the truth. The killer didn't want the people inside. The killer wanted what was sitting on the metal table behind them, the folder, the journal, the USB drive, the 3 items Richard Morrison had protected with his life, and now someone was risking everything to destroy them. Carver eased the door open a crack, just a sliver. A figure stood halfway down the corridor, black clothing, black gloves, face shielded under a hood, tall, poised, silent, holding something. Carver couldn't make out the object yet, but the silhouette was unmistakably that of someone who'd done this before, someone comfortable in hostile spaces. Dalton mouthed, "Who is it?" Carver. "Not here by accident." The figure turned slightly as if sensing eyes watching. Carver closed the door instantly. Dalton whispered harshly, "We need backup." The building's emergency intercom crackled. Static, then silence. Carver's jaw tightened. "They cut the comms," Dalton swore under his breath. The archivist trembled. The forensics analyst whispered, "Are we locked in?" Carver checked the keypad. The lock was still green, not jammed, not overridden. They could leave. But if they opened that door, they'd step into the path of someone who was ready to kill. Carver grabbed his radio. It was dead. Dalton tried his. Nothing. Not a sound. The killer wasn't here to scare them. This was a surgical strike. Cut power. Cut comms. Trap the evidence team. Destroy the safe contents. Eliminate witnesses if necessary. Carver lowered his voice to a whisper. "Everyone, stay behind the steel table. Don't make noise." Dalton leaned closer. "We can't just hide. They're coming in." Carver's tone stayed calm. "Then let them try." They heard it this time. Unmistakable. The rhythmic tap of boots walking toward the evidence room door. Not rushing, not hesitating, just coming. Dalton's hand tightened on his gun. Carver motioned for silence. The footsteps reached the door. Stopped. The room held its breath. A long pause, and then the doorknob rattled, slowly, methodically, testing. Carver raised his weapon. Dalton followed. Another slow rattle, then a stronger one, and then thud, a heavy strike against the door. The archivist flinched violently. The forensic analyst covered her mouth. Another thud, heavier. Carver whispered, "They're not trying to open it quietly anymore." Dalton nodded. "They want what's in this room, and they're willing to break down the door to get it." The handle turned sharply, forced from the other side. The metal groaned. Carver signaled, "Move back." Dalton positioned himself behind a cabinet. Carver took the right side of the doorframe. The room tensed. The next moment, boom! The door burst open violently, slamming against the wall. The hooded figure stepped inside with calculated precision. Carver didn't hesitate. "Sheriff's office! Drop the weapon!" The intruder didn't drop anything, didn't freeze, didn't flinch. Instead, they reached into their coat. Carver fired a warning shot into the wall beside them. "I said drop it!" Still no reaction. Dalton shouted, "Hands where I can see them!" And finally, the figure spoke. A low, distorted voice. "You weren't supposed to find the safe." Every hair on Carver's arms stood on end. The intruder lifted the object in their hand. Not a gun, a steel canister. Carver's mind processed instantly. Not a bomb. Worse, accelerant. Dalton's voice cracked. "They're going to burn the evidence." Carver stepped forward, gun raised. "Don't do it." The intruder tilted their head slowly. "This ends tonight." And then they hurled the canister toward the evidence table. Carver reacted with pure instinct. He tackled the archivist out of the line of fire as the canister hit the metal surface and rolled. Dalton fired. The bullet struck the intruder's shoulder. They staggered backward. But they didn't fall. They ran, fast, down the hallway, leaving a trail of blood. Dalton cursed and chased them. Carver scrambled to his feet, yelling, "Don't shoot near the canister!" But it was too late. The canister hissed, a spark inside, a chemical ignition. Carver dove for it, but the chemicals reacted faster. Whoosh! A violent burst of flame shot up the side of the table. The journal smoked. The folder curled at the edge. The USB case sizzled. Carver shouted, "Extinguisher! Now!" The forensic analyst grabbed the extinguisher from the wall and threw it to him. Carver aimed at the flames and blasted. The fire hissed under the foam. Smoke filled the room. But after a few seconds, the fire died. The damage was real, but minimal. They'd saved the evidence. Barely. Carver coughed, waving smoke away. "Dalton, status?" No answer. Carver froze. "Dalton, do you copy?" Still nothing. And then, a single gunshot echoed from somewhere deep inside the building. Carver sprinted out of the room. His heart hammered against his ribs, because he knew Dalton had gone after the intruder alone. And in this building, no one should be alone, not with a killer inside. The gunshot echoed through the station like a tear through fabric. Carver sprinted down the hallway, dodging debris, passing flickering lights that buzzed under the strain of a half-dead electrical system. Smoke still drifted from the evidence wing behind him, but something else began to fill the air as he moved. Fear. Heavy, tangible, cold. Dalton was out there, alone, chasing someone who had already tried to burn them alive. Carver's boots hit the tile floor in sharp, rhythmic strikes. He passed 3 empty offices, phones off the hook, chairs overturned from the sudden loss of power. The building felt abandoned, almost evacuated. But Carver knew better. This wasn't an evacuation. This was a purge. Carver turned the corner into the administrative wing and froze. A smear of blood streaked across the wall, not a spray. Not a pool. A smear. Made by a shoulder, brushing as someone ran. Dalton's voice echoed in Carver's memory. "I hit them in the shoulder." Carver knelt. The blood was fresh, bright, still glistening under the emergency lights. He whispered to himself, "You're bleeding out, but not fast enough, are you?" He followed the trail. Each smear was lower, messier, more desperate. Whoever the intruder was, they were weakening. Carver's breath steadied. He tightened his grip on his weapon. "Dalton, you better be alive." At the end of the hallway, one office door was open. Barely. Just an inch. A sliver of darkness. A faint shadow moved inside. Carver raised his gun and pressed himself against the door frame. The emergency lights flickered behind him. Tick, tick, dark, light. He nudged the door. It creaked, slowly. Revealing. A collapsed figure on the floor. Carver rushed in. "Dalton!" But it wasn't him. It was the intruder. The hooded figure lay slumped against a filing cabinet, breathing hard, hand pressed over the bullet wound in their shoulder. Blood soaked their clothes. Their chest rose and fell in sharp, shallow motions. Carver moved closer. The hooded figure didn't reach for a weapon, didn't lunge, didn't try to escape. Instead, They lifted their head and spoke in a low, strained whisper. He shouldn't have opened the folder. Carver froze. Their voice, no distortion now, just raw human pain, but familiar, sickeningly familiar. Carver raised the gun. Who are you? The intruder let out a weak, bitter laugh. You already know. And then they reached up and pulled the hood back. Carver's face drained of color. His jaw locked. His heart didn't just sink. It dropped. Because the person he was staring at was not a stranger, not a hired criminal, not a rogue staff member. It was someone who had helped investigate this case, someone who had cried when Richard Morrison died, someone who had been in the estate during the search, someone who had told them they wanted justice, someone who had been trusted, a member of Richard Morrison's own legal team. Carver whispered the name like it hurt to say it. Ava Kincaid, lead estate attorney, Richard's advisor, his trusted confidant, the woman who claimed she was helping protect his assets. Ava smiled weakly, eyes glazed with pain. Took you long enough. Carver's mind raced. Ava Kincaid had been at the estate the night Richard died. She had filed the petitions for emergency trust control. She had insisted that Richard wanted her to manage everything if anything happened to him. The forged signatures, the revised wills, the trust documents Richard never approved. She'd been behind all of it. Carver stepped closer. Where's Dalton? What did you do? Ava coughed, voice trembling. He went after someone else. Carver stiffened. What someone else? Ava's eyes flicked upward, and the word she said next changed everything, spoiled everything, rewrote the investigation, because it confirmed exactly what Richard had written in his journal. I wasn't working alone. Carver's pulse spiked. Who? Ava closed her eyes in pain. The one who stands to inherit everything. Carver went cold. Ava continued. You think I wanted this? No, I was promised a cut, a huge one. But it was never my plan. Carver's vision tightened. Then whose plan was it? Ava looked directly at him and whispered the name. Carver's heart nearly stopped, because it wasn't a distant relative, not the new staff, not the estranged niece, not the finance manager, not a security guard. It was someone even closer, someone who had been present from day one, someone who had comforted investigators, someone who had grieved loudly, someone who had insisted they were innocent, someone Richard trusted enough to never suspect they'd betray him. Ava's voice cracked. It was his own blood. Carver's breath hitched. Which one? Ava's eyes fluttered, and she whispered the name. Michael Morrison. Richard's son. The heir. The man who claimed he loved his father more than anything. Carver staggered back as reality slammed into him like a truck. Michael had been calm, helpful, cooperative, too cooperative. Carver muttered, he manipulated everything. Ava nodded faintly. He hired me. He forged the documents. He planned the revisions. And when his father started to suspect, he panicked. He told me the old man needed to go. Carver swallowed hard. So you helped kill him? Ava laughed softly. Broken, bitter, fading. I didn't kill him. I just made it easier. Carver's stomach twisted. Ava continued. Michael said, Richard wouldn't die unless someone close gave him the opening. Carver stepped closer. How did Richard die, Ava? Tell me the truth. Ava's breathing slowed. She blinked, heavy-lidded, and whispered, Ask Michael. He'll tell you, if you find him first. Carver grabbed her by the shoulders. Where is he? Ava's eyes rolled back. Her voice became a final faint breath. He went back to the place where it started. Carver shook her lightly. Where? Ava, where? Her hand lifted weakly, pointing toward the window, toward the Morrison estate, and then her arm dropped. Her body went still. Ava Kincaid was gone. Carver rose, chest heaving. Dalton was still out there. Michael Morrison was on the move. The estate was hours, maybe minutes, from becoming a crime scene again. Carver pulled out his emergency phone. One Ava hadn't disabled. He dialed the sheriff's private number. Straight to voicemail. He tried the backup line. Nothing. Dalton wasn't answering, and Michael might already be at the estate, destroying whatever remained. Carver spoke into the phone with clipped urgency. "This is Agent Carver, Code Red. We have a primary suspect, Michael Morrison, armed, dangerous, on the move. Ava Kincaid is down. Sheriff Dalton is missing. All units converge on the Morrison estate now." He pocketed the phone, holstered his weapon, and whispered to himself, "Richard, I'm going to finish what you started." Then he ran, straight toward the storm, straight toward the estate, straight toward the killer who believed he had already won. The Morrison estate rose against the night sky like a monument carved from secrets. Its windows were dark, its halls were silent, its gates stood open, too open, like a mouth waiting to swallow whoever walked in. Agent Carver's car skidded across the gravel drive as he pulled up to the front steps. He killed the engine, stepped out, and immediately felt it. Something was wrong. More wrong than before. The air carried the metallic scent of electricity and recent movement. The kind of stillness that wasn't natural. The kind only created when someone inside a house knew exactly who was coming. Carver drew his weapon. His flashlight clicked on. He took one step toward the front door and spotted it instantly, a drop of blood. Then another, a trail ascending the steps. Dalton or Michael or both. Carver tightened his grip. "All right, Richard. I'm here. Let's finish this." He crossed the threshold. The door creaked open with a long, whining groan. Inside, the mansion was pitch black. Not a single light. Not even the emergency fixtures. Someone had cut the power deliberately. Carver took a breath, entered, and the door drifted shut behind him with a thud that echoed through the vast foyer. The mansion swallowed the sound whole. The dim beam of Carver's flashlight landed on the marble floor. Blood droplets, more of them, leading deeper inside, but the pattern was uneven, some large, smeared, some small, scattered. Two people, moving separately, or one chasing the other. Carver whispered under his breath, "Dalton, please be alive." He followed the trail past the grand staircase down the east corridor. As he passed a side table, his light caught a family photo. Richard and Michael Morrison, smiling, arms around each other. Michael looked younger, proud, confident. But Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. Carver paused. Even in a picture, the unease was there. A father who knew something was wrong long before he had proof. He moved on. A loud groan echoed from down the hall. Not metal, human. Carver sprinted toward the sound, weapon raised. He rounded the corner and found Sheriff Dalton, tied to a chair, head slumped forward, blood trailing down the side of his face, a deep cut on his forehead. Carver rushed over. "Dalton, can you hear me?" Dalton lifted his head slowly, blinking through the haze. "Carver?" "Yeah, I'm here." "Who did this?" Dalton coughed. "Michael. He ambushed me. He knew we were coming. He said you wouldn't stop him." Carver cut the ropes with his knife. Dalton struggled to stand. Carver grabbed his arm. "Where is he now?" Dalton pointed with a shaking hand toward the north wing. "He's in Richard's study. He said he needed to finish his father's story before you got to him." Carver's eyes hardened. "Then we're not waiting." Dalton steadied himself, reached for his gun, but Carver stopped him. "You're not going anywhere. Call for backup. Tell them this is a code black, armed suspect, possible explosives, multiple injuries." Dalton nodded weakly. "Carver, he's unhinged. He's not the same man we spoke to." Carver stared down the dark hallway. "I know." Carver moved silently, following the direction Dalton had given. The mansion was a maze of shadows and echoes. Every floorboard creaked under Carver's weight. Every window reflected his flashlight faintly, like eyes watching him. He reached the hallway leading to Richard's private study. The door at the end was slightly ajar. A faint glow, warm flickering, spilled from the crack. Candlelight. Carver approached slowly, stepping over another drop of blood. As he neared the door, he heard it. A voice. Deep. Calm. Too calm. Michael Morrison. Talking to himself. No. Talking to someone. Carver edged closer and listened. Michael's voice drifted from inside. "You always thought you were in control, didn't you, Dad?" Carver's pulse spiked. Michael continued. "But you weren't. Not of your money, not of your legacy, not of me." Carver steadied his breath, ready to enter. Michael's tone shifted, cold, shaking with suppressed rage. "You should have left everything to me from the beginning, but you hesitated. You doubted me. You said I wasn't ready." Carver positioned himself at the door. Michael laughed, a low, broken sound. "Well, guess what? I'm ready now." Carver kicked the door open. Michael Morrison stood in the center of the study. Candles lit the room in wavering gold. Richard's portrait hung above the fireplace, eyes seeming to stare directly at the scene unfolding. Michael turned. His face was pale, feverish. His left sleeve was soaked in blood. Not his own. His eyes gleamed with a manic, twisted calm. In one hand, he held a lighter. In the other, Richard's original signed will. Carver aimed his weapon. "Michael, drop them. It's over." Michael smiled, a soft, eerie smile. "No, Agent Carver, it's finally beginning." He gestured around the room. Carver's eyes scanned quickly. Stacks of documents, estate files, financial records, original trust papers, Richard's personal notes, all arranged in a circle, all drenched in accelerant. Michael held the lighter close to the pages. "You don't want to do this." Michael tilted his head. "Why not? Everything in here destroys me if it gets out." Carver responded evenly. "No. Everything in here proves your father trusted the wrong person. But it's not too late to stop." Michael's jaw tightened. "Stop? Do you know what it's like? To watch a man with everything treat you like you're nothing?" Carver's voice stayed steady. "Your father was protecting the estate," Michael snapped. "He was protecting himself." Candles flickered violently from his shout. Michael stepped closer to the circle of documents. "He was planning to disinherit me, give everything to charity. Said I wasn't responsible enough. Said I wasn't stable." Carver's eyes narrowed. "Is that why you killed him?" Michael's voice softened, unnervingly calm. "I didn't want to, but he wouldn't listen. He said he'd rewrite the will." He lifted the lighter. The flame flickered alive. Carver's voice sharpened. "Michael, put it down." Michael smiled. "No." He flicked the lighter toward the papers. Carver fired. The shot struck Michael in the shoulder. Michael staggered backward, dropping the lighter, clenching his arm as he screamed, "You shouldn't have done that!" Carver rushed forward. Michael lunged. They collided. The table overturned. Candles fell, flames licking across the carpet. Michael punched Carver in the ribs, grabbing for the dropped lighter. Carver slammed him against the desk. Michael clawed, desperate, wild. "It's mine! All of it is mine!" Carver struck Michael's wrist, sending the lighter skidding across the floor. A small flame ignited a stack of Richard's documents. Carver shouted, "Michael, stop! You'll burn the whole estate down!" Michael charged at him. Carver dodged, tackled him, and pinned him to the ground. Michael writhed. "Let me go! Let me go!" Carver tightened his grip. "Not a chance!" Dalton's voice boomed from the doorway. "Carver! Fire team is here! Get out!" Carver dragged Michael up. Flames spread across the carpet, reaching the bookshelves. The portrait of Richard loomed above them. The candles glow reflecting across the painted eyes. Michael looked up at it and broke. He sobbed, choking, shaking, collapsing into himself. He always looked at me like that, like I was already guilty. Carver's voice lowered. You were. The fire crew burst in, dousing the flames. Dalton cuffed Michael's wrists. Michael didn't fight. He only stared at the burning corner of the study and whispered, "None of this should have been his. It should have been mine." Carver watched as officers dragged him away. The estate burned in small patches, but the fire was under control. The evidence, the journal, the folder, the USB, safe. Richard Morrison's truth, finally exposed. Carver exhaled slowly. Richard, it's over. You can rest now. But this case wasn't done yet, because Michael had one more secret.